Hello and welcome to the STCfit podcast. I'll be your host today. My name's Nat Jurek, and with me I'll be joined by Ben Scott and Jason Galea. STCfit are a group of coaches who provide premium coaching and education services to high-achieving women who want to ditch the frustration and achieve the results they want when they want. On the podcast, we'll be discussing all things related to our 5-step method to experiencing total clarity in knowing how to achieve your goals, present and future. The podcast is brought to you by STCfit for all your online and personal training needs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a share and tag at Nat Jurek STCfit, at Ben Scott STC, and at Jason Galea _STC. Hope you enjoy the show. So inconvenient.
I've created an environment where
I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's like I like my bed, I like my pillow, I like my desk.
Yeah.
Even like we were obviously working at the computer at the table. It's like
fuck this shit, not the same.
This chair sucks. This desk sucks. Yeah, my laptop sucks.
I like Amy's desk.
Yeah, it would have been an upgrade.
This is so nice.
I think we're live.
We're on. Benjamin?
That's the new intro.
Yeah. We've already done all the talking now beforehand.
Yeah, we've covered everything.
Yeah.
How are you, Nat? I haven't asked you how you are. I just vomited
yeah.
at you for half an hour.
I good. I feel like just kind of like going back into regular life is starting to feel normal again. Like, yeah. I'm like, I feel good. Like,
not overwhelmed
Yeah,
anymore.
Everything's just like cruisy, which is good. Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, we went away for 4 days over the weekend for the CDG charity event. 4
days feels like a month now when we're not used to being away.
Yeah, so we did, got there Friday. So we drove to Bright, so that was like 4-hour drive, so it's tight anyway. But then like just exposure to people, and they're my people, but they're still people.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
So by the end, I was just like...
Yeah.
Last night, Amy and I were just like, can we just lay on the couch for like 2 days?
And do nothing.
Yeah. Those weekends that you used to hate. It's like, can I have them back? Because that
was
really nice.
I know. I feel like that was me for the first like 2 or 3 weeks coming out. And like just now, I'm like,
yeah,
I can go to the gym, do my check-ins, record a podcast, talk a lot, and still feel okay at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's such a like good and bad time to have come out too, because it's almost
straight
Christmas.
Into I know.
And like, I don't know about you, I don't know what actually happens on Valentine's Day, but like this time of year, birthdays are like every second day.
Yeah.
And then obviously leads into Christmas. So it's hectic, but it's good. They definitely prefer this than the alternative.
Being locked up in our houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like one extreme to the next, and pick your poison.
Yeah.
Which one?
I think everyone's starting to roll back into the gym now.
Yeah, I think they're starting to get busier as well. I was talking to someone like at a Good Life.
Yep.
And she was like, yeah, it's like starting to pick up in a health club now, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I think we had the discussion that it was like the people that had it in their top 3 priorities were kind of finding a way to train all the way through, and they went back pretty quick.
Yeah.
Now it's like that next couple. It's like the top 5.
Yeah.
And then the people that have to go, like they don't love it, but they have to go.
Yeah.
They're going to start to come through shortly, I think.
Yeah, I think like you kind of get to that point where you're like, okay, like I have had my time now, like I need to draw a line in the sand, and like whether I want to or not, like I kind of got to get my shit together, so that'll come soon.
Yeah, there's that like obviously conversation of like COVID weight, but it's like post-COVID weight is a thing as well.
Yeah,
it's like you can get out, you can drink, you can socialise, you can
100%.
Yeah,
I feel like that's it, almost worse than the actual lockdown damage.
Yeah, well, look, I was losing about half a kilo a week consistently, and since we've opened up, it has plateaued. I haven't gained yet, but it's definitely plateaued.
Yeah, no, I started my diet this week, and I was like, can I have one high day? And Jace is like, yeah, all your other days are really low because you asked.
Yeah.
I was like, fine.
Yeah, I was actually sitting across the table from him when he was doing that, and he was like, oof, oh well. Too bad, Nat.
I go, can I please put my fat at 0.8, not 1?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, you can't. Nah, do what you want. I'm like, for fuck's sake.
Do as you're told, Nat.
I will.
Otherwise,
We're
You'll
talking.
have to self-coach.
Yeah, I will.
So
I will. I won't have one. Nice little
Awesome
segue.
Transition. Awesome transition.
I don't want a self-coach. I tried before. I didn't like it. So it would have been like a month ago now. Wow, that we did that episode, which does not feel like a month ago. Where we spoke about training, in terms of like face-to-face training, online coaching, and self-coaching, and we kind of like just touched on it very briefly. And I guess like most of the stuff that we talk about is through the lens of being a client. So what we wanted to do with this episode is kind of talk about what you would need to consider if you were that person who is self-coaching, or maybe like you've had a coach before. So you've gone through that experience. You kind of feel like you're equipped with enough knowledge, but maybe need just like a little bit more of a refined system. In order to get yourself to the next step, because like I know I've done it before, and I think that everyone kind of gets to that point where you like what got you to where you are right now isn't going to get you where you want to go moving forward. So it's like, what would we actually need to know? Like, where do people commonly come undone, and what do we need to do to fix that?
Yeah, I think that previous episode we did was valuable in terms of like, there's almost two types of self-coaching.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the mature approach today, but like, don't get caught up in self-coaching isn't your first 6 months at the gym where you walk around and use the same 3 pieces of equipment. Know what you're doing. Yeah. It's like, that's just like
you're lost
going to the gym. Yeah. We're talking about like an educated approach and actually self-coaching, not just like doing your own workouts. Difference being obviously you're actually probably mature enough to in your training journey, to have had some education, you've got some knowledge, hopefully some systems in place, and you know a little bit about what's going on. So you're plugging into a system that, like you said, you've either learnt from a previous coach or coaches or courses, or maybe it's podcasts and YouTube that you're picking up all this information from. Yeah,
there's just been some thought gone into it. To be honest, I think that approach is very rare, which is obviously why we've gone and put together some resources to provide you guys with some steps to be able to facilitate that, because most people sit in camp A where like you don't really know what you're doing, you don't have a system, it's all like guesswork, and there's just no real direction or clarity in terms of what needs to happen, which is why you get frustrated and disappointed with your results.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the people I picture in my head is like, you're still doing bro splits, you're still like eating bro foods, and like you're a little bit confused in terms of like what the right decision to make next is, and what data do I look at, and how do I track it, and it can quickly become an overwhelming mountain if you don't have that base.
And I think as a coach as well, or as people who want to be able to like, provide people with what they need to deliver an outcome, a lot of these people have so much potential because they have like the work ethic, the drive, like they're motivated 90% of the time, like, and even when they're not, they're going to do what they need to. But it's just like all of that energy is directed in the wrong area.
Yeah.
And it's like you have so much fucking potential if you just did things in a more intelligent way.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And usually like you can be forgiven for staying there because those people that are intrinsically motivated, they do have the work ethic, they have the consistency and all of that in place, which would probably be my checklist of like, should you self-coach? Like, are you intrinsically motivated, or do you need someone to be like, good job at the end of every week, or motivate you, which is a word we hate anyway.
I know, I hate saying it, but I'm like, I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah. So it's like, are you self-motivated? Do you bring the work ethic that you need to your training? And are you already consistent?
Yeah.
If you have those 3 things in place, and you're willing to pursue education, I think self-coaching is a great pathway. I've done it quite a bit. I'm semi-doing it right now. I have a running coach because I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. But like self-coaching, self-coaching in terms of like my weight sessions at least. I've done it with the first 3 years really of powerlifting, strength-focused training. I did it when I went into competition. I just consulted. And even earlier than that, just like testing our own models, being a coach, it's like, I want to do this and make sure that it works, and where the drawbacks are, where it's good, where it's shit, to make it better for clients was my kind of reason for it. And I've probably spent just as much time with a coach for the reason to be able like, I don't want to fucking think about this.
Yeah.
Someone else tell me what
Just
to do.
Just to outsource it. Yeah.
I'm writing enough people's programs
I don't
to not
want
write my own. Yeah. And if I notice like I'm getting neurotic about it, like making changes every single week and not sticking to programs and all that kind of stuff, it's like, oh fuck, I probably should bring someone in to do this. So I think it's really valuable and rewarding and fun to do. So if you are in that camp, it's like 2 coaches sitting here obviously tend to have the bias to like hiring a coach. You just said like, I've self-coached, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm more happy. I think it's a great way to pursue things, particularly based on your values. If one of those values is like learning or experimentation and all that kind of stuff, then I think that's a great way to facilitate that.
Yeah, if you do it properly, 100%.
Yeah.
So we obviously look at everything through our 5 pillars in terms of like what we need to tick off and how we're going to sort of drive those outcomes. So I think what we'll kind of do is, I guess, go through the common mistakes that we see or the obstacles that we see, and I can speak a lot from experience for the person who is like coaching themselves, and then kind of like showcase the flip side of that. And it's like what you would need to do in order to, you know, kind of change that direction and give yourself or put yourself in a better position to be able to, you know, make continuous progress. Because I think with a lot of people, depending on where you are in terms of your training age and your journey, you can probably self-coach for a little while and make progress and have no real clue what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think the key here is like that long-term ongoing progress and being able to set a goal, tick it off, set another goal, tick that one off, and be totally confident in the method that you have. Because when you don't have that, then that's when you kind of like hit that plateau.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like if I wrote a post this morning about like the compounding interest you earn when you train well, for example, like with technique. So it's like if your technique's off in that exercise, and that exercise is supposed to do 10 different things, right? So it's never just like, unless it's maybe a leg extension, the goal isn't just like, this was a goblet squats. Like the goal isn't just to train the quads. It's like train proprioception, train quads and glutes, train positioning of the torso, all that stuff that makes you better at a barbell movement, makes you stronger for this, makes you better at this, improves proprioception and skill and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to that initial kind of 3 to 6 months, 12 months almost, where you can do anything and get results, what you do inside that time is compounding into what's coming up. Yeah. It's like you can squat like shit for 6 weeks and 6 months and still get a stronger squat, but you're going to have to tear that squat down and rebuild it in that next block if you didn't do it intelligently in the first one. Yeah. And I think that's where the value of like, if you're going to go down the self-coaching route, you need to know what you're doing and do it with intent. Because like, yeah, sure, you can go in and get results for the first 3 to 6 months of training. Everyone can. But it's the interest that you earn post that newbie phase that's worthwhile. Across all the pillars, like obviously use training as an example, but across everything. Yeah. How you approach everything. Like the 5 pillars, like you said, it's like mindset, training, programming, nutrition, lifestyle, like how you approach all of those things during that habit formation phase, which you would say is like 3 to 6 months for most people, where that newbie phase will reward you 12 months time.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like doing things in an efficient way, like fast tracking your results. Like if you had 2 options and it was like, you can get the same result in 6 months or in 12 months, like which way are you going to take? Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like the crash diet thing. It's like, cool, you can lose weight by eating fuck all. You'll probably put some, if not all of it, back on. Yeah. So with a slower approach versus that drastic approach, in 6 months' time, who's further ahead? Yeah. That's the same approach here.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when I was kind of thinking about like the pillars and the common mistakes, funnily enough, the first one is mindset, and one of the first things that came to my mind was like that short-term vision of like, I'm just going to do this like now because I can see like the acute return that I have, without having like a broader perspective of like the long-term direction that you want to take, which
I mean, if no one's laying that out for you, or if you don't have the maturity to be able to lay that out for yourself and see beyond the next 12-week phase, that's going to be really hard for you to put things in place because you don't have that vision. So I think that goes a long way just in terms of your perception of your progress and what you actually want for yourself, and being able to like future forecast things outside of just like, you know, instant gratification of the 6-week result.
Yeah, I think like we'll obviously start to unpack the mindset whole concept. So the main areas we play with inside mindset is, and we've talked about it in this podcast before, is like growth mindset, ownership mindset, and then value-based goals. So like what you're talking about there is like having short-term goals that don't mean anything. Yeah. So a reflection of that and what should be a trigger for you or a red flag. Nat's favorite, red flags. Yeah. What should raise some questions is like language like I can't, or it's because, or I lost motivation, or I fell off the wagon, or whatever. Like those comments are like, this pillar needs some work. Yeah. Like you need to pay attention to what's going on in this space right now.
And I think it's even more important if you are coaching yourself that you have awareness around this, because obviously if you're working with someone, you've got someone there to like point out your blind spots and kind of like pull you up on that stuff. But if you're on your own, and I tend to find, like, I know that I was like totally there, it's like it's really easy to get into like a deflective mindset or a fixed mindset because no one's there to pull you up on it. And if you're resistant to that help because you think you don't need it, or because you think you know everything, like that's a telltale sign that you're in that like headspace, which I tend to find is really common for the person who is coaching themselves, and that's probably why you've kind of backed yourself into a corner and done it without any help.
Yeah, it's that fixed mindset of I know what I'm doing kind of idea lends itself to you being self-coached anyway. So it's going to be a high percentage of people who are self-coaching themselves right now that are self-coaching themselves because they don't need a personal trainer. You know what I mean? It's not based on the value of, well, I value growth or education or learning or something like that really highly, so I'm actually going to pursue this based on that. It actually comes from almost like an ego position of like, fuck a PT.
Yeah, you just read my mind. I was going to say, like, that's a big ego check. If you're someone who is thinking in that way or can't see the value in getting some external support.
Yeah, because it's like some of the best coaches in Australia that I know have coaches. So it's like it's silly to say I fucking know what I'm doing. Like coming from that approach, like I particularly like I know better. Yeah, it's like maybe you just haven't found the right coach, but it's pretty unlikely that you've got it all on lock as much as some of, like I said, Australia's best coaches and athletes that have coaches themselves as well. Yeah, there's different benefits to that. So just, I guess the first message would be check that. Make sure that you're doing this for the right reason, that it's not an ego thing to do it. It's out of, I think curiosity is the best way to approach it. It's like, I'm really curious what I could do if I did this myself, what I could learn, what I could take away, how else it could benefit me from a value standpoint, and then approach it from there.
Yeah, I think if you're someone who is invested in like coaching yourself and you are reluctant to get a coach, or you want the, like, I guess it's like the validation of like doing it for yourself and feeling really good about that and feeling empowered by that and the responsibility, then I think it's kind of important for you to reflect on why you want that, and is it coming from a place of, like, I want to do this and I want to be right, or I don't want to be right, I don't want to be told that I'm doing something wrong, so I'm not going to ask the question. Like, I think I know Jay says this a lot. It's like we stop asking questions as we get older because we don't want to be told that we're wrong. And it's like, well, you've got to have a think about, why you're refusing to get that help. And is there maybe some sort of like ego death that happens when you are told that you're wrong, or when you need to change the way that you're doing things because you don't like to hear that. So a lot of that is just like, reflecting on where you sit and I guess like what the reason is and where that kind of sits in alignment with your values.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's maybe one other person who is self-coached who has another, I guess, thing to think about inside their mindset pillar is personal trainers / coaches who are scared that I'm a coach, so I should know, and if I don't, if I have to hire a coach, then why would my clients hire me? Because they just hire the coach that I've got.
Yeah.
It's like I've never had someone...
Clients say,
like I said,
bullshit.
I've been training for 11 years, coaching 10 of those. In that 10 years, I've never had someone go over my head to my coach and be like, oh, I didn't want to work with Ben because he works with you, and so I chose you instead. It's like, it's never happened. And like I said, that most of the best coaches in Australia have coaches as well. So it's so much based on relationship, etc., that you're not going to lose clients because you have a coach. If anything, you're going to get rapid acceleration in your quality as a coach, because in theory, you've sought out someone who's down the line, at least in that area, further than you. Like, I've had a coach the last 3 years. You've had a coach probably the same period of time.
Yeah.
Jason's got a coach. I coach Tam.
Yeah.
Like, we've all sort of like got them, and it's fair to say that we do okay with our coaching businesses as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a little bit of insecurity there that I should know what I'm doing, so I don't want to ask someone else to coach me and help.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they're like, just looking at, I guess, like the community that we have, there's a lot of people out there that are both like trainees and coaches, or even studying. Like, I know even inside of my own coaching community, there's a lot of my own clients who are either studying nutrition or studying to be PT, and it's like the growth that they have from having someone in their corner, even if it is just from their own training perspective, accelerates what they're going to do inside of their own business. So again, it's just thinking about how you're viewing these things and what position you're sitting in. Is it that fixed mindset? Is it growth mindset? And how you're coming at that.
Yeah, and then inside of that, like, if those boxes are all ticked, I think what most people will look for is a community. So it's like, well, where can I belong and do this? It's like, you're probably maybe making friends on Instagram to create like relationships with people. Maybe you're seeking courses or Facebook groups or whatever, that it's like, well, if I plug into this, there's a network of other people that think like me. You listen to the podcast, that's one. It's like, where are all these people hanging out that are also doing this thing that I can bounce ideas off and have conversations with and learn from while you execute this quote unquote by yourself. It's inside of a community, which I think gives way more value. Like, I've done it in the past where it's just like a consultative process. It's like, can you tell me this is okay? Because I'm going to look over it and over it and over it again and change it. So I think, plugging into, I want like you said, the fulfillment and the reward from doing this myself, but I'd like to be part of a community that's going to allow me to get the most out of it.
Yeah, and that's what we spoke about in like the previous episode mostly, which was, having a support network to be able to bounce ideas off, even just to see or get ideas off other people, what they're doing, have someone in your corner. I mean, like, we all know that this isn't always going to go perfect, and like shit will hit the fan at some point. So even if it's not a coach who's like keeping you accountable as such, it can be really valuable to have like just a community or a group of people, or even a community inside of that network, like, who you resonate with most, that you can kind of just touch base with and chat to each other about what's going on. It can be really helpful to have people on the same page as you. Yeah,
100%. Cool. I think that pretty much sums up where you would be aiming to get to if you're not already and you want to self-coach. Like, they're the boxes that you want to tick off.
Yeah. So the next one that we have is training. So this is a really big one. I think a lot of this can kind of be alleviated by just, outsourcing or broadening your education and I guess like what you have access to. So I tend to find the people that go wrong inside of their training and what they're doing is just simply because they don't know, like they have never been told, or they've never actually taken the time to have a look at, what they're doing and what might be different and how to sort of better move and how to train better, because they just haven't yet sort of like looked down that avenue. And like, I was 100% guilty of it, where it's just like, I don't want to be told again that I'm wrong. So I'm just going to do what I've always done and kind of just hope that like is enough to get me where I want to go. And I think that if you are invested in this which you should be if you're coaching yourself, then like there's got to be a little bit of extra time and attention going into what you're actually doing with, executing your training.
Yeah. Yeah, I think training's one of those ones that you're going to have to put in time and effort there. And I think even if you, particularly these days with online coaching, and even if you're doing PT, it's unlikely that you're going to have someone watching you train all the time. And if you choose to be self-coaching, you've got to be the one that's assessing the quality of how you're training.
Yeah.
So that means filming your lifts. It doesn't mean filming your lifts to post them on Instagram. It means filming your lifts, fucking double tapping and being able to slide the bar across and look in detail at where it's good, where it's not good. Then it's also, okay, well, if that's breaking down, what do I need to do? There's no one else there to give you a cue or an exercise or whatever to fix something. It means, all right, I need to go find out why am I hip shifting to the left in my squat? I need to go find out what the causes of that could be, what interventions I might need to put in place. Then you'll need to do them and you'll need to review them. So having some kind of systemic model in place to be able to firstly assess your movement, which we did an episode on, that was the last time I was on, was assessing your own technique. So what to actually look for. So we talk about reference lines. We won't unpack it all today. Go back and listen to that episode. But it's a systematic way of looking at how do I move, ticking, crossing those boxes off. Then, okay, we've got the progression regression model. Again, which we talked about in that same episode. And we've got blogs online if you want to go check those out as well, just at STCfit.com. And it's okay, well, do I need to regress the exercise or do I just need a cue to make that better? Making that decision needs to happen yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to make that call. It's not up to the coach anymore. So I think you have to be willing and able to invest the effort and the time that both of those things require. And like we said at the start, if you value learning, that's fun. If
you
find
enjoy that process,
then that's great. This is 100% the place that you should be, nerding out on all of this shit like we do.
Yeah, and I guess the thing here as well with training is that it's ever evolving. You've got to understand that you're not going to just squat perfect for 1 week and that's it. Your squat is perfect forever, and you never need to change it. You never need to fix it.
I wish.
I know.
The Holy Grail.
Yeah, but it's I think that where a lot of people become undone is that, you might get to a certain loading, or, you might get to a point where you're I'm really happy with this. And then the progression stops because as soon as you add more weight, another breakdown happens and you don't know how to fix that. So I'll just do what I did last time because it looked good when I did 50 kilos, not 70 kilos. Yeah. So I'll just do 50 kilos because I'm happy with that. Yeah. So then we don't have, like you said, a system to go back and kind of pinpoint where things are actually breaking down and have a method there to be able to fine tune that and allow you to progress. Otherwise, you're just stuck doing the same shit forever.
Yeah.
Because it's ever evolving and you've got to be able to, pinpoint what's happening, where things are going wrong. Otherwise, you'll just get stuck doing the same shit. And that's where training gets boring. You don't want to do it anymore because you're plateauing and, you either get a coach or you stop. Yeah.
And I think within that is we start to develop this, we call them niggles, where it's determining between a niggle and we'll say an injury or a dysfunction is when you do a thing and it starts to hurt, it's probably a niggle. If it hurts all the time before and or after training, it's
you got a problem.
That's a problem. So niggles come about from poor movement or poor exercise selection or whatever. Exercise selection obviously falls into the programming side of things. But knowing what exercises work for you is going to be based on how you move, and knowing how you move and knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are. So how you train will influence the next pillar, which is going to be programming. So I see a lot of people that are self-coached, but not in the way we're kind of describing it today. That's my shoulder hurts when I overhead press, so now I overhead press at 70% on the bench, an incline. And then you see him 3 months later, and it's oh, now my incline bench is at 45% because my shoulder hurts at 70% now. It's okay, so avoidance isn't treatment here. You've kept doing the thing that's fucking your shoulder, but you haven't actually gone away and gone, okay, what's happening?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as like, this hurts when I squat, so I just squat half weight.
Yeah.
It's like you're still squatting and it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Like that's not it.
And you're not making any progress anymore because you're not
to
close
regress.
enough.
Yeah.
And we mentioned at the start, like being like self-motivated and having the effort in the gym, like being able to train hard. And we talk about like proximity of failure and stuff like that. So most trainable outcomes are going to happen between 3 and 0 reps in reserve. Or in RPE speak, it's like 7 to 10. So if you're training by yourself, not with the coach to hold you accountable, you need to learn where that is. And you need to learn when it's appropriate to go to 0, when it's appropriate to stay at 3, when they're kind of the main 2 ones, when it's also appropriate to not go anywhere near those and just practice a skill or
and
improve
like
a function.
What you would do that for. It's like what you actually program to be your like top set of squats shouldn't be backed down because you can't do it because you're in pain and taken as a skill exercise. So it's like you got to have a more refined way to like, you know, put those things in place in terms of like exercise selection and the purpose of like what you're actually doing. So now we're sort of starting to get into the programming side of things, but it all kind of plays into one another. And if you don't have a seamless kind of transition and you know what you're working with, then that's just going to hold you back. It's really going to make it challenging for you to be able to progress and even just stay healthy, like longevity within your training. Yeah.
So just to give a practical use for that, for the listeners, like pretty much skill and function. Skill in particular is like 30% of your max load to up to about 60, 70 is going to be optimal adaptation. Outside of that, you're going to start to not get as much from a skill standpoint. Function, when we talk about training for function, it's not like fucking wobble board stuff. It's just your intent is to getting your joints and your body to move together as a unit collectively, which particularly like for a strength athlete or a bodybuilder, we don't do that very often. We always tease Jason for the Tin Man because like close your eyes and march and left arm, left hand, left knee lifts. It's like you probably should do that the opposite way, bro. So it's teaching your body to still operate as a human. That it makes sense in your head. It's like, well, I'm not gonna fucking take that balls to the wall. Hypertrophy work, most of that is going to be in a machine or some kind of external stability, low risk in terms of the exercise, typically low overall like systemic fatigue, if you want to talk about it that way. So not maximum effort loads in terms of like how much intensity, weight on the bar. That's going to be lower. So you can go to fucking town on that. That's going to be like 2 to 0 reps in reserve most sets. Then strength, it's like, okay, lifting really heavy weights with a barbell comes with a degree of risk, comes with a degree of systemic fatigue greater than that of hypertrophy. So maybe you just need to back that down a little bit. Maybe it's 4 to 2 instead of 2 to 0. So knowing how to place those out in your training and when to go and when not to go. If you're self-coached, you need to have that baseline of information and then you'll learn. And you'll learn quick. Yeah. Because it's like,
that didn't work. I change that next week.
I wrote a barbell program and went to 0 rep in reserve for a week. And now I fucking don't want to train and my digestion sucks. And all of those things start to come into play. And you're like, oh, okay, I've fucked that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like when it comes to training, there's a lot that if you haven't looked into it, you don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know. So it's important that, you know, you're invested in doing this for yourself. Like you've got to be able to apply the time, the effort, the energy to investigating all of those things. Otherwise, the alternative is getting stuck doing something generic, something that's not specific to the goals that you want, something that's not going to allow you to get optimal results. And, you know, eventually you'll just get frustrated with what's happening, or you'll get injured, or you'll just resort back to maybe, you know, like needing a coach or needing someone to kind of do that for you because you don't have the tools to be able to do that for yourself.
Yeah. So the checklist for effective self-coaching under training is going to be knowing and understanding technique, knowing how to assess and review technique, having the skill set to then go find solutions for it, knowing how hard to train when. If you can tick all of those boxes, great. If you can't and you want to self-coach, that's where you need to put your energy inside that and make sure you're getting that right.
Yeah, and just a little like side plug, we have got resources everywhere for all of those things. So like the podcast, the blogs, there'll be YouTube coming soon. Because it is a lot to unpack. I mean, we've got a course based on this and it's a lot of information. So you can take your time and go through that with a fine-tooth comb. Yeah,
definitely. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
So next one we move on to would be programming. So what are people, first glance, what are people fucking up when it comes to programming?
I think that the value of a program is almost it is undervalued for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously like we're coaches and we're writing these day in, day out and we know the variables that we're working with. But if you maybe haven't worked with a coach before, you've only kind of been exposed to like the more PDF based stuff or an app or something. It's like knowing what you're working with is just, it's not common knowledge. We've done a podcast on it before. I think there's like 8 or 9 variables that we speak about. And it's like all of those things, every single one of them needs to be at least thought about or considered when you're putting something down on paper. And too many people are just looking at a program as my exercises and my rep selection. And like, that's all that I need. That's all I need. Like, I just need to know what I'm doing and how many times I'm doing it, my sets and my reps, and that's it. And I guess like, again, it's one of those things that it might work for a very short period of time, but at some point it won't. And we need to have a better understanding of like what variables we're manipulating and what we can influence based on your goal, because your goals will change as well. So it's like, how do I change all of these things based on my goal right now in order to get you headed in the direction that you want to go in?
Yeah, and there's an overwhelming wave that comes with learning programming that's like, understanding complexity creates simplicity. And I really like that. There's a lot of complexity in programming. There's heaps of it. Like we could do fucking 10 episodes just on programming and its variables. The key thing I think that you need to have is a method. Every single method that is effective and well thought out covers 2 things. First one being the SAID principle. So SAID means specific adaptation to imposed demand. So whatever is in your program is there for a reason. You know what that reason is and you've selected it not because I like it.
Yeah, or I saw someone else do it.
Yeah, and you ask, I always say like, ask one more question. It's like we saw the other day, I won't name the influencer, posted a leg extension video and was like, if I turn my feet out here, this happens. And if I turn my feet in here, this happens. Like, ask one more question. What the fuck does the quad do? Well, it extends at the knee. Does my foot position really change anything above the knee? No. Okay, so that's stupid? Yes. Move on. So, yeah, specific adaptation to imposed demand. Every single good programming model on earth adheres to that. So that would be step 1. The next one is, you can call it I call it the SRA curve. It's also referred to as the GAS syndrome. So SRA means stress, recovery, adaptation. So when you go in and train, you create stress, then you have stress, recovery, adaptation. Then you have a recovery phase where you're detrained. So the best way to kind of picture this is if I took Nat into the gym tomorrow and was like, hey, we're doing 10 sets of 10 squats. Off you go.
I'm out.
Too much cardio.
I don't want to.
And then the next day we came in and said, hey, Nat, you're doing the same weight, same reps, go again. The likelihood of you being able to do that, unless you sandbagged, is very, very low, right? So we intuitively know that there's a period of time where we've reduced our ability to perform. So that is that stress phase. Recovery obviously takes time. We'll talk about diet and all of that other stuff in a moment, but there's a recovery period that is required there. Then we have the adaptation phase where basically there will be a time that Nat is better equipped for that 10 by 10 than she was the first time she did it. The caveat to that is if Nat isn't in a position right now to actually handle 10 by 10 and it created too much stress and I wasn't able to recover, I never get to the adaptation phase. So I've detrained myself. So if I was then to get Nat to do 10 by 10 again, she'd underperform and or get injured. Excuse me. So if we can go, right, everything in my program is there for a very specific reason, considering a very specific outcome, and that comes back to what the exercise is, like you said earlier, the rep range, the load I'm using, the rep in reserve, and how each part of that intricate process ties in with all the other workouts and the phase you did before and the phase you're going to do next and the goal you have right now, your nutrition status, your recovery status, all of those things are considered. If you've got that, then we just need to kind of go, all right, based on recovery status and all of that stuff, how hard can I drive this needle? How much volume / intensity / effort can I drive and still create adaptation? So I think most people that go down the road of writing programs do too much.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as you're talking about all of this. I think that the biggest problem with the person who's coaching themselves is that you might not be getting an outcome. So the only thing you can think of is I need to work harder and I need to do more. So you almost end up overtraining, which again, counterproductive. But it does come with the nature of trying to do things by yourself and not getting a result and not having another way to manage things. It's like, fuck, I've got nothing else to do. So let's just add another day of training, or let's just work harder. And at some point, like, your recovery capacity isn't going to allow for that. And I also think that, like, the other thing that you mentioned was, I guess, like, not looking at your program in isolation. It's like it is part of a bigger picture, again, in alignment with your nutrition, your lifestyle, your recovery, all of these other factors. And it's like, if you're just putting something on paper and not taking into account those other variables, then you're likely to run into that wall a lot sooner than what you should.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, like, because none of this is said with judgment. And I said earlier, I've been a PT for 10 years. We've just moved from powerlifting into a conditioning block. I'm training with Tam. And how many workouts have we walked in and been like, all right, so we've got this, and this, and we've got 5 rounds. And we all go, all right, sweet. And we do the first round and go, 3? Definitely fucking 3. And then even the comments usually like, we'll just taper it up over the block. It'll be fine. And you get to the next week, you're like, 3? We're definitely fucking doing 3. So yeah, like, even experienced people have this and I think that is an important lesson to learn. Coming back to, for me, it's programming a really different style that I don't necessarily have a clear method as to what I'm doing. It's like, what looks good on paper doesn't always look good in the real world. So it's being able to have some form of data where it's like subjective in terms of how you felt, how it went, all that kind of stuff, but also objective data where it's like, what did your performance do? Were you getting better every week? Have you continuously gotten stronger? Have you built the muscle and all of that you wanted to? Are you fitter? In my case, are you actually a human being instead of the fridge? Like, those things are important to consider with programming as well, that it's unlikely, if you're new to this, that you will write the perfect program, go in and execute and be like, fucking nailed it. Yeah. And not change anything.
Yeah, like you just said, for you it's kind of goal specific, because it's like you've never really worked towards this goal and it's something different, so you don't really know what variables you're playing with. And I think a lot of the person that we're talking to, it's the same thing. Like, what are you looking for inside of a performance strength-based goal? What are you looking for? What variables matter when you're working with a physique goal? And when we have a base level understanding of the fundamentals of programming, and then we can kind of dissect that in terms of, physique, body composition and strength and, performance based, then we can kind of know what we're looking for and how to fine tune that based on the goal. But when you don't know those variables, it makes it really hard for you to know what you're kind of playing with and what direction you want to go in.
Yeah, I think you guys just did the physique programming episode. Yeah. We'll have a strength one coming out. Also, if you want to go really deep into the weeds, we've got a programming for coaches episode on STCfit Learning as well, and the variables inside that. So that's us talking to PTs on how to do that. So if you're at a level now where you think, I've got it pretty well, you can jump over there and learn from that as well. Like Nat said, there's resources everywhere on this stuff. So I know what I'm thinking about. I know how to execute in the gym. I've got an okay program. I know what I'm doing there. Nutrition is the next step, right? So someone who's taking care of their own nutrition, biggest pros, biggest cons.
I think that the cons, or I guess like the mistakes that I typically see is, again, just a really acute vision of what's happening. So it's like, this is what's happening inside the next 6 weeks, and that's all I've planned for, which means that what's happening inside of those 6 weeks isn't done in context with anything else. So the decisions that you're making, the way that you've set things up, are done without a rational, logical time frame. So you can't look at what you're saying right now and say, it's okay that I've cut my calories down to 1,400 for 6 weeks because I have an exit strategy. And I know that once I'm done with that, I'm going to diet break for 4 weeks and I'll have a maintenance phase. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to go into a surplus. And I know that I can see the bigger picture. So compliance to my 1,400 calories, I can probably commit to that. Whereas if you're going into this just thinking, I need to eat 1,400 calories because that's what I saw on Instagram and I don't know anything else that I should be doing, and I'm just going to do that for as long as I physically can and then call it, and that's it. You don't really know where to go to from there. It's like, you're not going to comply with it because you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the plan out of that is. So like, you're not going to stick to it, so you're not going to see a result. And two, it's almost going to be a rebound approach. So it's like, I do this, I fall off, I'm going to do it again because last time I wasn't disciplined enough. Going to try it again, probably fall off again. And that's where we get this back and forth. And I think that a lot of that comes from not having a bigger vision and a bigger plan in terms of like what you're working towards.
Yeah, I think that is the one thing that the highest percentage of people get wrong. It's not having, and to be honest, in the coaching land as well, it's not having a plan and not thinking of these approaches as phases. You have to have a phasic approach to your... They say diets don't work, right? Like 96% of diets fail. I would say 98% of diets don't have a phase-based strategy. Like you spoke about what you do after, even before. It's like dropping to 1,200 calories, 1,400 calories is not the time to create habits. You should already have them. Like, you should already know whatever your method of measuring your intakes is. Like, we use a hand plan and macros or whatever else. If you want to use a diet plan or whatever, like, you should have that under control before those calories go down. You should know, okay, well, this is roughly where my maintenance is, which that means 20, 30, even if you want to go crazy, 40% deficit is here. And then for a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, Nat said 1,400. It's like, yeah, but like 1,400 is a strong ass deficit for Nat. 1,400 for me is death. Like, it's not the same thing. So understanding like, well, and you're putting yourself through all of this pain for what reason? To lose extra muscle mass that you spent so much time and effort to build. And then like a lot of more and more now, and I don't know about yourself, but I'm getting more and more people that are like coming to me and it's like, so what are your goals? And I'm waiting for like, oh, you know, I just want to lose a little bit of weight, tone up, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I want to build muscle and I want to be strong. And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. But there's more and more people that want to do that don't have the education of like, no, you actually have to eat a appropriate amount of food to create new tissue. Eating in a deficit means removing tissue from your body. Eating in a surplus means adding tissue from your body. You could do other stuff where we manipulate what type of tissue that is, but having the awareness of right now, maintenance phase. I'm focusing on performance and habit formation, and like if it's after a phase of locking in everything I just did.
Yeah, I think when you said like, you know, what's the biggest con when it comes to nutrition, a lot of people, and you see it on social media all the time, it's like low calorie diets are the worst thing in the world. And it's like, no, that's the symptom of not planning things properly. Like, look, there's nothing wrong with a low calorie diet when it's applied properly. Like, I'm not going to advocate for a 1,200 calorie diet for everyone, because a very small percentage of people will actually be able to comply with it. And if you're coaching yourself, you're going to know whether or not that's you and what approach is better for you. But part of that is having the context to apply that to. So it's like, that's not the problem. The low calorie diet or the way that you're eating, the preference, like none of these things that might get portrayed to be the problem with nutrition or diet culture or whatever, the fuck people say the problem is with nutrition. It's like, it's not. It's that you can't apply that to like a logical context, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah, and I got a message last week from a client who she'd had PTs, and then had kind of self-coached her and done challenges and this app and that app and whatever. Would kind of almost be on the cusp of thinking about doing this. Because she knew what macros were. She knew how to track them. She trains pretty well. She moves okay. Like, she could probably figure out a program to start from at least. The last 4 or 5 years, she'd been getting a yearly iron injection. She had chronically low iron. After, I think I've been working with her now for about 14 weeks, we only lost, I think, 2 kilos. But she's lost 8 centimeters off her waist and 10 centimeters off her hips. Went to the doctor. Cool, we just need to do your bloods before. She booked her iron injection straight away because she knows every year she needs it. And look, I'm not saying that it was the only thing. Maybe something else. Like, I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm not, like, PT I have a baseline nutrition qualification that if you're otherwise healthy, I can advise you on what to eat. Go and see your dietitian if shit is up in the air. So, doctor came back and said, cancel your iron booking because you don't need it. It's like, well, what changed? Well, I'm eating 800 calories a day, more than I have been for the last 4 years. And I'm continuously losing weight or losing body fat, maintaining weight, increasing performance, getting stronger, building muscle. I had the first client ever to say, hey, my glutes are getting too big. I need to do less glute work. I was like, what? Are you sure? But yeah, like, and that is a representation of, again, we call it diet culture. I think it's just poor application of what dieting should be. Yeah. Of just, I have to be dieting all the time and not taking a structured approach. And it's like, this isn't stuff to fuck around with. Like, I've got 6 girls working with me who, within the last 4 to 6 months, didn't have a menstrual cycle. Or didn't get their period. Probably a better way to say that. Yeah. And now they do. Because they eat food. Yeah. And they do, when they've still done diets. They've still done cuts. Yeah. But they've done it when they need to, with a setup phase, an exit strategy, a plan afterwards. And I think if you're doing this by yourself, you need to, the hardest part is going that little bit extra through the bullshit that is Instagram post influencers, etc. And even, I don't like shitting on our industry, but even just like a little bit further than maybe the coach that had you on a diet for a year and just finding what's the real information. Yeah. How do I set this up over a long period of time?
Yeah, again, it comes down to outsourcing the relevant information that you need, especially when it comes to nutrition. Like you said, you can fuck some shit up long term, like, and it's really not worth it just to lose a bit of body fat. So it's worthwhile investing the extra time to go and learn that, because once you know it for good. Like, you know, information might change, and you'll obviously stay up to date with that if you care enough. But once you know it, once you have enough information, you'll be able to call out the bullshit, and you won't get sucked into the stupid diets or, you know, the training, the nutrition plans or the challenges or whatever it is, because you understand what you're working with, so you can make more logical decisions around your nutrition.
Yeah, we laugh about nutrition in that, like, when it comes up to either writing about or talking about nutrition, we're kind of like, all right. Because it's like, once you've seen the Matrix, you've seen it. Yeah,
you can't unsee it. Yeah,
it's like, this isn't that exciting of a topic now because I get it. But it's funny how excited we used to be about shit that made no sense and didn't work. Like, complex methods and stuff like that realistically now we look back at and go, it wasn't the most effective way to do it. Realistically, all we did was manipulate calories, and that's why we got the outcomes.
Well, I always get clients who are like, are you sure this is all we need to do? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, but it sounds so much more complicated on social media. Yeah. And I'm like, and did that work? Yeah. No. Is this working? Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's go with this.
Yeah, but the simple method, again, there's a $1 trillion industry in dieting. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't really, work. Yeah. My little argument with that is like, I think diet culture is a symptom we talked about earlier of asking the next question. Yeah. It's like, We used to, and I'll put my hand up and say we were fucking dumb. We used to have a protocol that was like you can't eat carbohydrates and fats at the same time.
Yeah.
Because if you eat them together, you have a higher propensity of storing body fat, and you should just focus on one. So we were having 6 meals a day because metabolism. So 3 of them were protein and fat, 3 of them were protein and carbohydrate. Ask one more question. Have you eaten carbohydrates and fats in the same meal before and not been fat? Yes. So do you think that's the fucking problem?
No.
Like, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
right? It's like, so yeah, that one more question process applies in all of these pillars, but very, very important in nutrition. Very, very important if you're getting your information from social media and not reliable courses, etc. Even them, like sometimes there's a lot of that's like, how much easier is it to sell a seminar where I come in and go, right, the reason you don't have the body composition you want is because you don't separate your carbs and fats. Go and do this and it's going to all unravel for you. I know you've tried everything, but this is it. That is an easier ticket to sell than come and learn how to manage energy balance, be reactive with your nutrition around your menstrual cycle, and be consistent over a long period of time. It's like people,
Too hard. Boring.
yeah, it's like, what, you want me to take responsibility? Fuck. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a
battle for us.
Yeah, something you've got to sieve through if you want to take care of nutrition yourself. You've got to understand that.
Yeah, and just not be willfully blind and gullible.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Always ask more questions.
Yeah. So that leads us to the last one, which is lifestyle. So I guess this kind of falls under the bracket of, sleep, stress, management, and recovery. So I think all of the things that we've spoken about, all of the problems that we've kind of spoken about, kind of lead themselves up to lifestyle, where it's like if we're overtraining, we're under eating, where our program is inducing a shit ton of fatigue, we feel under recovered, we can't support what we need to in order to get the result that we want. You might have, we all have other things outside of training that we need to commit to. So whether that's a job, family, kids, relationship, whatever it is, it's like we've got other things that we need to expend energy in order to commit to. And it's like, if we can't balance all of these things, like, it's a fucking recipe for disaster. And I will be the first person to say that I have been there, and it is the fucking worst place to be. I remember when I was kind of like coaching myself, and I just finished up with my coach, and it was almost like a 6-month stint. I'd finished up, I was burnt out, quit my job, had all of this external stress happening, and it was like I couldn't get out of bed. Like, I can't even get myself out of bed to go for a walk, let alone go and train or, do anything else productive, go to work or whatever it might be. So it's like the combination of all of the other previous pillars going wrong is almost what leads to lifestyle just absolutely imploding.
Yeah, it's a weird two-way street there. Hey, it's like, do too much with, don't have the right mindset, train too hard, or don't manage training effectively is probably a better way of saying it. Have a poor program, don't manage nutrition well, lifestyle's going to be impacted. Yeah. Flip side of that is don't manage lifestyle, not able to maximize the program, actually train hard repetitively, and you'll start thinking and feeling weird shit because like the recovery is not taken care of. Yeah. I think the best analogy I have for it, and we introduced the SRA curve before. So if you picture like a graph and you have a dot is where you started, and then we do that 10 by 10 session, we have a line that sort of drops down in like the shape of a curved line that drops down and then comes back up and meets that line, goes over that line a little bit. We call that like a valley is under the line, right? If you take picture a jug, and into that jug we have like positive recovery things. Sleep is the biggest one. Nutrition is in there as well. Then from a lifestyle, and we work with people who tend to be high achievers in general. If you're taking this serious and you want to self-coach and maximize the outcomes, it's a good chance you're probably that way inclined as well, which means you probably go pretty hard in the rest of your life as well. So you have external stresses so positive is going to be, well, how do I offset that? Things like journaling, grateful logs, to-do lists, all of those little like meditation, those 1%ers that actually getting enough sunlight, all of that type of thing is going to help. So that's what we're pouring into this jug, and that's how we're going to fill it. On the bottom of that jug, we have a hole. Everyone's hole is a different size based on their life, and that is all of your external stresses. It's the relationship stress, it's work stress, it's alcohol, maybe bad food choices, it's being on fucking social media too much, it's whatever else. Yeah, it's whatever else that you're allowing in, not even allowing, that is happening around you. If that hole becomes too big, the jug is draining faster than it's filling. And if the amount of recovery or some of recovery inside that jug doesn't fill the valley in the SRA curve, you don't make progress. So there's two ways that we can improve those outcomes. One, improve your recoverability. More sunlight, more sleep, more relaxation, more meditation, more whatever it is to help fill that jug. And we can close the hole up. Remove some external stresses from our life, eat better, stay away from alcohol, create better habits, all those kind of things would close that hole up so you're not losing that precious recovery that you're putting in.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to being proactive. So again, having the lifestyle factors on lock inside of your day-to-day routine. So it's like, knowing what your sleep schedule looks like and that sleep routine, and are you waking up and getting sunlight, and how does that actually look on a day-to-day basis. The flip side of that is like, if you don't have some of the other stuff on lock inside of your programming, your nutrition management, your like the mindset stuff, if you're not doing that, then the sleep schedule and the like to-do list and the gratitude log that you have isn't going to do too much.
Yeah.
So it's like we've got to have a combination where we're being proactive in terms of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So it's like our routines and our habits that make up like our lifestyle, and the things that we have in place to almost streamline that. So it's like, if we haven't got our program on lock, and if we're inducing too much fatigue, and if we've got a poor victim mindset, deflective mindset, and we're not eating enough food, and we're all of these things that happen that almost like formulate the structure of our lifestyle, if that's not in place, then the to-do list and the gratitude isn't going to do too much. So I think that it's important that we recognize like, what actually makes up the structure of how we put these things together, and what actually happens practically on a day-to-day basis, and what do I need to manage and actually tick off consistently to almost uphold that standard.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize we call these pillars for a reason. They're not like, it's not a pyramid, they're pillars.
Yeah.
Each one of these are as important as the other, and they all need to come together to hold up. If you are picturing like what I'm picturing, beams, pillars holding up a building or a rock or something, that is your outcome. It's
holding up you being absolutely shredded and strong as
fuck. Yeah. If you don't have all of those in place, then like it's going to be off balance. The likelihood, the more of those that go missing, the more likely it's going to be a total collapse. But to have the maximum outcomes, you need to have all 5 of those in place.
Yeah, 100%, which is, exactly like you said. It's why we're never going to sit there and be like, this is the one thing that you need to do to effectively coach yourself or to get yourself a result. It's like a little bit more effort needs to be invested into managing a lot more variables than that.
Yeah. So the one thing you could do...
Again with the sneaky segue.
the one thing you could do to achieve all of this would be our Be Bulletproof program. So essentially what we've thought about is, what does everyone need/want to know to get their outcomes? Now, this course isn't designed only to be for people who are self-coaching, but it's what you would need to do it effectively is included in it. So if you wanted to learn everything we just talked about, and you still want to have a coach like Nat and I, like we know it, and we're just like, nah, fuck that, sounds hard, I'd rather have someone else do it. Then this course allows you then to know and understand what's coming to you from your coach, and maybe even have like a better relationship, like a two-way relationship with your coach, where you're a little bit more aware of what's going on and you can create more dialogue with them. Alternatively, yeah, everything you said today resonates. I want to be the person that loves learning and figuring this out and trying it, and all that sounds really cool, and I want to nerd out over it and all that kind of stuff, then this program would be for you as well. So if you were interested in doing something like that, you can pre-register right now on STCfit.com. I'm staring at Tam, so make sure we have this up on Friday when it goes out. Pre-register for our next intake once that date is confirmed. It's going to be late February next year at this stage, so you can pre-register now. We'll obviously just get in contact with you as well and see how things are going in the meantime. But pre-registrations will be open. So 12-week course, 12 group workshops.
Yeah.
It's all online. I think there's something like, last time I looked, about 30 separate e-learning modules that you'll go throughout as well, and then come to the workshop. Again, it's that, I think the biggest win, that we can talk about all the features and stuff, but I think the biggest win is that community.
Yeah.
It's like the outcomes you get are, you can go and coach yourself to a really high standard and guarantee that you're going to get results over an extended period of time. And you're part of a community that allows you to check in and say, hey, I'm doing this, is it right? I'm doing this, is that right? I'm doing this, is that right? Bounce ideas off other people and feel like you're not totally alone in it, which, like we said at the start, unless you're a fuck you, I know better, you're probably going to value that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are interested, like Ben said, you can head over to the STCfit website and apply over there. But in the meantime, I definitely recommend jumping over to the resources that we have over on the STCfit website. So we've got plenty of resources in terms of the blogs, the articles, the YouTube videos, and the previous podcasts that we've done. So all of that will give you a really good indication on the sort of content that you can expect, and I guess just like unpacking some of the layers that we go through in there, so you can have a better understanding of what you're in for, if this is an avenue that you'd like to go down.
Yeah, and I think one last thing that I would do if I was you right now, like, should I, a pass-fail, tick-cross kind of method to should you pursue self-coaching right now, is go and do the Be Bulletproof scorecard. If you're not scoring kind of 75% plus in there, then I'd say hire someone for now while you learn and even just say to them, like, my intent is to be able to do this by myself. If you get the wrong coach, they'll balk at that, then that means they were the wrong coach in the first place. So yeah, go and fill out the scorecard, see how you go with that. That'll tell you where your holes are as well, based on today's conversation, like what stands out as low-hanging fruit that you can improve on, that'll allow you to get better outcomes and be able to take this on all by yourself. Yeah.
Sweet. That's a pretty good place to leave it.
Yeah. So make sure you pay attention to at STCfit, at Ben Scott STC. And what's yours?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You don't sound confident.
It's been 2 weeks since I said it.
At Nat Jurek, STCfit for mine. Tag and share on the stories if you guys found this valuable.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you in the next fortnight.
Bye.
Bye.